What's going on, guys? JSGC here, back again for another episode of the Transfer Show, rolling weekly throughout the summer transfer series for you guys to enjoy in this transfer window. So if you haven't already, then do please subscribe. That'd be much appreciated. I'm going to keep you guys up to date every single day with all the latest City transfer news here on YouTube. It is free to subscribe. Social media links are in the description as well. If you want to go and follow me on my X, Instagram and TikTok, email also in the description. So if you want to hit me up for any sponsorships, for any videos, or any general business inquiries, we're going for 200 likes, so any help towards that would be great. And do get your thoughts as well in the comments below if you're watching this after the stream, and if you're tuning in right now, then do feel free to get your thoughts in the live chat. Welcome, Task. Thank you for tuning in. We are going to be speaking about right-backs in just one moment, wanting City to target either Vanderson or Wesley. All things football. Welcome once more for tuning in. Much appreciated. Speaking about Wesley, could be off to Roma. There's a lot of interest in Wesley this summer, and I'm not entirely convinced that City will be making a move for Wesley, but we'll see. And welcome, Parth, as well. Much appreciated. Archie Gray, a good shout, but I'll speak about right-backs, and I'll speak about Archie Gray when I speak about Djed Spence as well, because it's a very similar situation. So, pretty easy situation here for right-backs. You know, Kyle Walker's already left. He's gone to Burnley. Manchester City have freed up some wage. We still haven't got round to clearing out any of our non-homegrown players. So at the moment, when it comes to our Champions League squad registrations, Manchester City are not going to be able to register at least 2 non-homegrown players. You would expect them 2 players right now, if the squad stays as it is, to be the 2 most inexperienced players that we've got, which is Claudio Echeverri and Vita Hayes. And it's something that Pep Guardiola hates. He's already spoken about it, joked about how he wants to leave Manchester City if this continues to be the case, because he just doesn't want to leave players at home when they could be playing football. So this is Pep Guardiola's way of telling Manchester City's chiefs and telling Hugo Viana he wants players to be sold. He wants his squad to be a squad size that he's happy with, and that is a working squad where all players can be registered and all players can play for Manchester City. So this pretty much eliminates any homegrown right-backs that Manchester City could bring in, including that of Denzel Dumfries, unless Manchester City decide that they're going to start selling players and letting players leave, whether that be either permanently or temporary and on loan. So I'm looking towards the likes of Vita Hayes and Claudio Echeverri and saying, what's going to be happening with them for the upcoming 12 months? What's happening with İlkay Gundogan? What's happening with our goalkeeping situation when it comes to the futures of both Ederson and Stefan Ortega Moreno, when they've got less than 12 months left on their Manchester City contract? And also getting some clarity about what's going to be the next steps for İlkay Gundogan and Bernardo Silva, whose both their contracts are up in 11 months' time as well. And that's not even taking into account Manchester City wanting to sort out some of our homegrown players and letting the likes of Calvin Phillips leave, potentially Jack Grealish as well. And there has been the odd question mark here and there this summer about John Stones and Nathan Ake in particular, with their proneness to injury, but I'm not expecting either Ake or John Stones to leave Manchester City this summer. So the only player sale that we've seen from City is Kyle Walker's left. It means Manchester City now have a space in their squad when it comes to a potential right back being signed. We've signed an out-and-out proper left back and left wing back in Ryan Aït-Nouri. It means our options on the left hand side are looking pretty solid and pretty good. But we've got Aït-Nouri, we've got Joško Vardiol, Nathan Ake and Nico O'Reilly, who can all cover on that left hand side. When it comes to the right hand side though, we've got Rico Lewis, which I know some of you guys have shown some concern about. We've also got Mateus Nunes, who, let's face it, isn't a right back. He's a player that we're using at right back because we've got no other suitable alternatives, and he's done a pretty good job, I thought, when he's been asked to play on that right hand side. He's got pace, he's good with his pass accuracy, does need to tighten up a little bit when it comes to his defending, but he isn't a defender, he's a midfielder, he's a winger, he's an attacker. He likes to be versatile, but he likes to get forward, he likes to create opportunities, he likes to get assists, he knows how to score goals. Yeah, it's all about having these suitable options for Man City. And I think, like with Kyle Walker, the one thing we're really going to miss, obviously not just his his pace, but also his versatility on that right-hand side, because he wasn't only a right-back, he was a player who could play as a centre-back, as a back three, and having a player that's capable of doing all of them roles whilst being homegrown, well, there's few and far between. The only player really that can do that is Tino Livramento, who can both cover on the right-hand side and left-hand side. A very good defensive player, 22 years old, from Newcastle, who do want to sell. But I am keeping my eyes open on what's happening in terms of Alexander Isak at Newcastle, because what we're seeing here in the transfer market, with Liverpool wanting and letting it be known that they're willing to spend £120 million on Alexander Isak, Liverpool are trying to transfer bully Newcastle into making that sale. And what it's going to show is it's all about player power when it comes to transfers. Players have a huge say on where they end up and whether they want to leave a club or not. We tried it with Bruno Guimaraes. We weren't happy to pay the release clause. We wanted to try and negotiate last summer. The player simply didn't want the transfer. He wasn't willing to push for that transfer, request that transfer, and make that transfer happen. He was happy at Newcastle, and I say, fair enough. And it's pretty much the same situation with Tino Livramento. Newcastle don't want to sell him. I don't think the player's willing to sit down with Newcastle and say, look, I've got interest here from City and I want that transfer. That isn't going to happen. So it makes Tino Livramento not really an option here for Manchester City. But keeping an eye on what is going to happen with Alexander Isak, in particular with that striker from Frankfurt that both Liverpool and Newcastle are targeting. Liverpool are doing a very clever tactic, because they know that Newcastle are after a striker, so they're going to target the striker that Newcastle are after, and they're basically saying to Newcastle that if you don't sell us Alexander Isak, we're going to take your number one striker choice away from you, and we're going to sign them instead. So Newcastle now are being backed into a corner by Liverpool in terms of this transfer, and it'll be interesting now to see what Newcastle are going to do about this, because if Alexander Isak tells Newcastle, and I wouldn't rule this out, Alexander Isak tells Newcastle he wants that transfer to Liverpool, then Newcastle don't have any other choice really than to get their number one target from Frankfurt and sell Alexander Isak. And that, for me, is a smart bit of business from Liverpool. A bit unethical, and I'm sure a lot of people would frown upon that. Manchester City don't tend to do their transfer bids. City aren't as relentless or as ruthless as this when it comes to the transfer market. Manchester City are, dare I suggest, maybe a little more prudent, a bit more careful about their transfers than what Liverpool are. Liverpool are going gung-ho, though. They're having a 10 out of 10 window. They've just won the Premier League, and they're strengthening their team tenfold. They're setting up their team ready for the future. And it's scary when you look at Liverpool's team. Alexander Isak, there's the potential of Florian Wirtz playing through in midfield. They're being heavily linked with Rodrigo. They've got Mohamed Salah, Virgil van Dijk, obviously Cody Gakpo, McAllister. They've got a tremendous squad. They brought in Kirkez as well. Got an upcoming prospect in Connor Bradley. Got a fantastic goalkeeper in Alisson. They're going to take some stopping. And Liverpool are showing, to me, what a really good, solid transfer window looks like. And that is the kind of window that I want to see from Man City. Man City are, for me, 10 out of 10 window away from being back, from being a team that can compete for the Premier League and or the Champions League. Because right now, with our squad, if we stick with what we've got, we will not challenge Liverpool for the Premier League title. We won't win the Premier League. We won't win the Champions League. And I can tell you that before a ball even being kicked. Because from what I've seen from last season, and Manchester City have made some good additions to their squad, they've not done anywhere near enough. And I'm looking at Liverpool having a complete 11 and a solid team with a solid depth, with a real good manager who's now got the experience of winning the Premier League as well. It's going to take some stopping. So Manchester City have I got to counter this, and they've got to improve and better themselves. And I look at City's squad, and there's some gaping holes. In particular, I think City have neglected to look at the defence and look in particular on their defensive line. I'm looking towards high-quality centre-backs that, other than Joško Vardiol that we've brought in pretty recently, over the last, 3-4 years, we've not really properly invested towards looking at centre-back since bringing in Ruben Diaz. So we're left looking at 2 injury-prone centre-backs in Ake and John Stones. You got Ruben Diaz, who's now starting to, for me, show signs of wear and tear. That's because of Man City's very high line that they play. And then we're left with very much the next generation, your Husanovs, your Vita Hases, your Joško Vardils. And for me, this is all about where Manchester City need to be more ruthless in the transfer market, in making sure that they're weeding out the old players and replacing them with high quality young players, and the players that we've already got who are high quality young players, making sure that they're getting game time and they're being embedded into the squad as well. And that includes Vita Hayes, that includes Kodia Husanov, that includes Claudio Echeverri. I'm going to include Nico O'Reilly in this as well as a reason why he's been linked with the exit door, and it's all to do with managing the game time. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to finding that balance between using the experienced players and producing forward the next generation of players. Because if Manchester City want to be smart and prudent in the transfer market, then you've got to be focusing on the next generation of players. Sometimes that means paying a premium when it comes to bringing players in that you want to bring in. We had to pay a premium when it came to Joško Vardil, £70 million. It's a very expensive, it's a whopping transfer fee to pay. And I'm thinking to myself, when it comes to this right-hand side and, what option do you want to look at? Do you want to look at Denzel Dumfries? Do you want to look at Djed Spence? Do you want to have a look at Archie Gray? Do you want to have a look at somebody else? For me, they've got to have a real good look for me about who is the right player, and then going all out for that right player, because Man City have saved a heck of a lot of money. They've got money to burn this summer, and they're choosing not to burn because they want to try and stick to their transfer strategy. And every now and then you've got to break that strategy to improve your team. Liverpool, normally quite prudent, normally quite smart in the transfer market. They're investing a heck of a lot of money in Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak, 2 high-quality players who improve their team tenfold. And that, for me, if I'm looking at priority positions, I'd be thinking this exact same. We want to be looking at upgrades. To get upgrades on your current brilliant team that you've got to invest smartly. You've got to invest a lot of money to make that happen. And if Man City think that we're facing what I call the Tino Livramento problem. Tino Livramento is the player that Man City regard as being perfect as their Kyle Walker replacement. So if he's the perfect player, there's no need to start looking at X, Y, and Z and thinking to themselves about being cheap, as Mad Hatter says there. Welcome, thanks for tuning in. You need to just fully focus and say that he's the player that I want. And if he's the player that we want, then you send it. You go full in, all out. You put that pressure onto Newcastle. You put them onto the back foot. Liverpool are showing Man City how you put Newcastle in a transfer battle onto the back foot. And I'm really interested to see how Newcastle are going to respond when it comes to Alexander Isak. I find it really interesting. I find it interesting about this battle that's going on with Morgan Gibbs-White at Forest. They're not a team that want to be bullied. Spurs are trying to bully them by bringing in Morgan Gibbs-White, and they don't want to be bullied. They don't like it. And it ends up getting very political in the transfer world. But I find it so interesting. So I think to myself, if we want Tino Livramento, they're speaking, £65 million. It's going to take more than £65 million to make that transfer happen. It may be an excessive amount, higher than what we're willing to pay, a ridiculous amount. But we've got to be thinking to ourselves that the players that we want and what we're looking for from our team, it's about long-term investment. Now, I'm not suggesting that City pay way over the odds for Tino Livramento. I'm not suggesting we start paying 120, 130 million pounds, because that's just an excessive amount of money. No player, unless you're looking at, a generational player, in particular an attacking player, you're not going to be doing that. So what you want to do is, Mad Hatter's spot on there, you buy cheap, you buy twice. So you think to yourself, right, well, Tino Livramento's the answer, and we've got the cash to spend. How much can we spend, and how much are we willing to spend to make the transfer happen? Because Livramento improves Manchester City's starting 11. He is, for me, a step up on Mateus Nunes, on Rico Lewis, and he's a really good option on that left-hand side as well, and it also allows us to free up a little bit more space on that left-hand side for the likes of Nathan Ake, Joško Vardiol to concentrate on being a centre-back rather than a player that plays on that left-hand side of defence. Let other players who play in that position naturally compete for that position and allow our players to embed themselves and allow ourselves to, what I've been craving so much at City, is a settled back line. A settled back line will be what enabled Manchester City to win the big trophies. Chopping and changing and not knowing who your strongest team is going to cause a lot of concern in this transfer market. So for me, that is the direction that City need to push this transfer window into. Players that don't want to be here, you sort that out, you weed it out over the next couple of weeks, you strip the squad down so you have a good look about which players are going to be here in the long term. If the answer is they're not going to be here in the long term, unless you're a long-serving player, I'd be ruthless and I'd wave bye-bye. It takes us nicely on to LB's. Thanks for tuning in, by the way, Lewis. Much appreciated. On what he's said here about the potential issues. So he says, personally think that if we don't get Livramento, Vanderson or Singo, and if homegrown is an issue, then start looking towards selling the non-homegrown players, the likes of Edison, Ortega, Akanji, Gundogan and Mateo Kovacic. Now, I've said right at the start of this transfer window, just before Kovacic had his operation, which has ruled him out for near enough the whole summer, that Kovacic for me was the easiest sale that Manchester City had in our non-homegrown quota that we've got, because there is interest in him. Saudi Arabia are interested last summer, and they'll come calling this summer if he was fully fit. He's not fully fit, and he's not going to be fully fit until probably middle of August. So is that interest going to return at the middle of August? Remains to be seen. I'm almost certain it means keeping hold of Kovacic, and keeping hold of Kovacic means you've then got to sort out Gundogan, because Gundogan's not going to be here next summer. He's only here because Man City put a clause in his contract to keep him here. I don't think Man City wanted to keep him here, but Man City are happy to keep him here. Pep likes him. Gundogan's a real good player, and if you can find a way to rotate him and rest his legs, Gundogan's actually a really good squad player. So for me, having both Gundogan and Kovacic, great, but it can cause some problems, because it's now, this is where we're getting our Nico O'Reilly problem. For me, this is, you've got to find ways to get Nico O'Reilly in the squad, and, you know, we're facing here the possibility of Kovacic and Gundogan not being here in 12 months, but a young player like Nico O'Reilly doesn't want to wait around, and if he doesn't want to wait around because he can get the guarantees of first team minutes and lots of minutes elsewhere, he could take that option. That's his choice. And if he does take that choice, that puts City in a position where, you know, we may have to heavily invest next summer in looking at more midfielders, when we've already got a player who could, you know, who's been around the first team squad for the last couple of years in Nico O'Reilly. So for me, we're hitting ahead. We need to sort ourselves out. We need to decide who's going to be here in the long term, who's not going to be here in the long term, and what's this transition going to look like? How are we going to phase the older players out and bring through fresh new energy, fresh new players and fresh new ideas, and also find a way of finding a good balance of making sure that the academy players are staying at Manchester City, they want to stay at City, and they are being given their opportunity in the first team squad. And this is what Hugo Viana gets paid the big money for. It's what Pep Guardiola gets paid the big money for, because we had the Rodri problem last season of him being injured and we couldn't find a suitable player to be brought in. We've gone and invested in our squad. We've added a lot of quality over the last 12 months. We no longer have an excuse to not compete at the top of the Premier League and compete for the Champions League. In fact, I would say that if Man City cannot compete with Liverpool and Man City cannot compete in the Champions League and they're starting to show signs of regression, I think City would have to have a good, long, hard look at themselves about why that is. Because at the moment, we're falling behind. That's the situation that we find ourselves in. I watch these really good transfer windows from other clubs, the clubs around us, and I'm thinking to myself, this is causing me a lot of concern. I want Manchester City to do the transfer business that needs to be done this summer. Get it done. Bring a right back in. If the goalkeeper doesn't want to be, if Edison doesn't want to be here or Ortega doesn't want to be here, you let them move. Let them leave, get the money in, bring somebody else who does want to be here. Because what you don't want is players who are half-arsed, not interested in being here, and just having that real lazy, lackadaisical attitude. It's that positive mental attitude. That attitude decides a lot about what happens, because when you're looking at elite, high-end football, Man City have a very gifted, very talented team. And if it's not working hard, they're not going to win games. They're not going to win the big trophies. Same with what Liverpool are doing as well. It's not going to happen. It can't happen for them if they're not going to perform and have that positive mental attitude that they're looking for. City's attitude at times last season wasn't there, and it wasn't right. And it didn't look right. It looked disjointed. It didn't look very positive. It looked all over the place. Finger pointing, blaming each other. We didn't know what was going on. And we've had these problems at the Club World Cup group stage perfectly fine because we could bully teams. As soon as we've got a team who's willing to hit back and push Manchester City, again, we didn't have any answers. And it all comes down to that back line. You need a strong back line. You need to know who your strongest defenders are. You need to know who's going to be starting week in, week out, who your number one choice goalkeeper is for the next 2, 3, 4 seasons, who's going to be your starting back line, who's your two centre-backs, who's your two strongest centre-backs, who's going to be starting the big games. Always think of it as Champions League semi-final, first leg's coming up. Who's your starting 11? Who's it going to be? And that's where you've got to be looking at your squad and saying, right, where's our weak points? Where's our strengths? And I look at it and I think to myself, yeah, right-hand side causes me a lot of concern. I have a little bit of a concern about the centre-back situation with City, more about the injury proneness of Ake and John Stones. If they sorted their injuries out, I think City actually would be pretty fine with our centre-backs. I'm really happy with the business that we've done in midfield with Tijani Reinders. If we can find a way of getting Rodri back up to speed and find a way of managing his minutes, I think having Rodri around will be a huge positive influence on our midfield. In terms of our attack, bringing in the likes of Ryan Ait-Nouri to help support on that left-hand side with Jeremy Doku. That link-up play is going to be brilliant. We've got Ryan Cherky coming in as well. We need Phil Foden to be stepping up. We've got Omar Marmoush, Erling Haaland there. There's a lot to be positive about. That big gaping problem's that right-hand side. That Mateus Nunes, that Rico Lewis, yeah, Kodia Husinov if you want in a third alternative, or an aging, injury-prone John Stones going there. And that for me, heading into the season, we've seen the problems, not good enough. I said it last summer about not addressing the Rodri problem. Wasn't good enough. Not finding a suitable replacement for Rodri and managing his minutes last summer wasn't good enough. And if we don't bring a right back in, it's not good enough. We don't sort the goalkeeping situation out again, it's not good enough. And that can be the difference between competing in the Premier League, competing in the Champions League, and winning the big trophies or not. So they're my thoughts. If it's not to be Tino Livramento, and I don't think it's going to be Tino Livramento, where else do we look? Denzel Dumfries, we need to sell players. Djed Spence is not going to leave Spurs. They've got Champions League football. They don't need to sell, and Man City don't like doing business with Daniel Levy, so it's not going to happen. Same with Archie Gray. Man City won't bring players in from Tottenham Hotspur. We've not done any business that I'm aware of since we brought in Kyle Walker, and even that was quite an ugly transfer to get sorted. So I'd love to know your thoughts, guys. It's a bit of a mess with Manchester City, and it doesn't help that things are so quiet out there. Players not getting linked with the exit door. Future's not being sorted out. We're happy to send players out on holiday. Fantastic. But sort out the future of these players who haven't gone to the Club World Cup. James McAtee, I don't know where he's going to end up and how long that transfer is going to take to get sorted. Calvin Phillips is still a City player being linked with no moves. We're looking at Jack Grealish. He's not gone to the Club World Cup. We're still none the wiser. He's been linked with some loan moves, but these loan moves don't make a lot of sense to me. So what is going on? I'm watching the other teams do lots of great business, and I'm thinking City have peaked really early in the transfer window. And if we don't do any more business in this transfer window, then this great start that we got off to becomes, for me, a mediocre window. And a mediocre window, when I'm seeing good bits of business being done by the teams around us, might not even be the difference between, the winning the Premier League trophy and not winning the Premier League trophy and competing for the Premier League trophy. It could actually be the difference between having Champions League football next season. And we don't do any more business. I think we need to start looking towards assessing our priorities and what Man City's expectations are for the season. Because we're still transitioning, and this transition is going to continue for at least another 12 months. It's going to keep me busy covering all of this City transfer stuff, yeah, but I want Man City to be able to compete. I want our squad to be strong. I want to look at City's team and say, Liverpool's team's great. we're maybe not quite on their level, but we're certainly, right on Arsenal, and we're capable of competing with them. And we weren't a million miles away from Arsenal in terms of a 38-game season, but as you saw from that game at the Emirates, when Arsenal stepped it up and City couldn't compete with them, we weren't at the races with them. And we didn't show that often last season our complete potential, what we were capable of doing. And yeah, I just think that's something that we need to sort out and think about right now and get things sorted. It's been a quiet window since June 10th. And it's July 16th now. We need to get things sorted. Thank you very much to Mana Vajit. Much appreciated for the donation. Big shout out to you, my friend. He said, who should be our second option if we're not going to land Tino Livramento this summer as a right-back position? And also, if Ederson leaves, who do I think should be our second option as a goalkeeper? I presume that you're speaking about having a look at contingencies, alternatives. So, if Ederson leaves, I think it'll be Diogo Costa. If it's not going to be Diogo Costa, I would really like to see James Trafford be brought in. That's a bit of a controversial take, but it's homegrown, sorts out a bit of a homegrown, non-homegrown, problem that we've got. I'd prefer Trafford to replace Ortega and compete with Ederson for a season, but I don't think Trafford's going to be prepared to wait. There isn't that many other high-quality goalkeepers out there, but James Trafford's really good with his feet, and I feel like he's right now ready to make that step up to a big Premier League team. And I think in the next maybe 2 or 3 seasons, we're going to be talking here about a goalkeeper who's going to be England's number 1, who's going to be a goalkeeper for a top 6 Premier League team, who's going to be fantastic with his ball distribution and a good shot stopper as well. And he's got bags of potential, and he's a former City lad as well. So if it were, he'd be my choice. That's right up to opinion as to who you think it would be. I'm near certain. Not 100%, I'd probably say about 85-90% certain, though. If Ederson leaves, I think it would be Diogo Costa that City bring in from FC Porto. In terms of the right-backs, a bit of more of a tricky question to answer that one, to be honest. Livramento, I don't think he will be signing, so the answer is, who's the contingency going to be? In an ideal world, we'd want it to be a homegrown player to be brought in. Well, obviously, we spoke about Djed Spence. I can't see it being Djed Spence because I can't see us doing business with Tottenham Hotspur. Denzel Dumfries is all about, can we sort out what's going on with our non-homegrown players? I think he'd be a really good player, Champions League experienced player. Good in the short term. I think he's certainly a good option to consider for the next 2 or 3 years. I think he'd be a good player, actually, for Mateus Nunes and Rico Lewis to learn from. He's got tremendous experience with his time from Inter Milan, so I could think of worse players. But other than that, what other options really is there out there that City could go with, to be honest? So, if it was me, I'd probably go with Denzel Dumfries as my contingency to Livramento. To do so means Man City would have to sell, but I would be loaning Vita Hayes and Claudio Echeverri out because I think they need European football experience for the next 12 months. That puts City in their quota. It means we'd still need to sell one more player, and I'd wait till the latter parts of this window, and I'd be having a good look at Kovacic and Gundogan, and I'd be deciding one or the other. I wouldn't keep both. I'd let one or the other go. I respect both of them. I think they're both tremendous football players. I just feel like we need to find a bit of midfield balance, and we need to find a way of keeping Nico O'Reilly here. The worst case scenario for me is Gundogan and Kovacic stay. More than likely, these players won't be at City in the next 12 months, certainly in the next 24 months when both their contracts are up. Yet Nico O'Reilly is the future, so you've got to find a way of keeping these players here who are the future, as far as I'm concerned. So, that's what I'd be considering. It's a real good shout. I'm quite surprised that Chevalier's not been linked with more teams. I thought he would have been one of the hottest prospects on the market when it comes to goalkeepers. And so the fact that he's still sat on the market surprises me. I heard that he were off to Villa, or Villa were seriously having a look at him. And I've not really paid attention. I don't know if Villa's been getting linked with goalkeepers to replace Emi Martinez. I don't know what's happening with that situation. I'd have thought Chevalier was off there, but here we are. Lookman's a good shout as well. Homegrown player. It's all about considering these homegrown players and having a look at who is the next best prospects that we're looking at. Players who are going to add a lot to the City squad. I mean, if we were looking at centre-backs, if it was up to me, if I had to do like a dream Man City transfer window, I'd let Manuel Akanji leave just because I don't think he's got the pace to be able to compete. He's a good option to have around as a squad player, but Pep likes to start him, and I feel like City always look like they're exposed when Akanji's starting. I'm not saying he's a bad defender. I think he's a really good defender. I just think that right now there's better options out there for Manchester City. And I would look towards bringing in Guéhi from Crystal Palace. But I've heard again Liverpool having a good look at him because there's some doubt over Konate. So, yeah, there we go. LB putting in some good shouts there. Some real good shouts. Welcome, Herbal. Thanks for tuning in. Much appreciated, my friend. Much appreciated for tuning in. So yeah, it's a bit frustrating at the moment. It's a bit of a frustrating part of this transfer window. It's frustrating when I'm having to cover it every single day and I'm having to speak about a lot of the same things about outgoings. This player being linked with the exit door. There's interest here. There's interest there. You know, there's no offers coming in and bids being put in, and it's been going on like this since the Club World Cup. We went out the Club World Cup at the beginning of July. It's now the middle of July, and if this carries on for another week, it's going to be the end of July. Time's running out. The transfer window's open until September 1st. The Premier League season starts in a month or so's time. We need to start getting serious about things and sorting things out now rather than leaving things too long, seeing primary targets go elsewhere, and Manchester City are just left looking at option B or option C. I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm getting pretty fed up of settling for option B and option C. I want option A. I want us to go all out, full send, option A. They're the players that we want. If they're the players that we think are right, make it happen. So what Hugo Viana gets paid the big money for. You want the big transfers, the players that you want to be brought in that's going to help City for the next 5 or 10 years, then go all out and make it happen. At the moment, I'm a bit concerned that there's not really any rumours of City doing anything about this. That causes me concern. I know we're in a situation where we need to sell before we can bring players in again, but we've got nothing in the pipeline. And once more, we're putting ourselves under pressure where we've got to act quick in the market. And when you've got to act quick in the market, it gets fun, it gets exciting, but it also leaves us towards the end of the summer transfer window. If something doesn't go our way, it becomes very difficult for us to get transfers sorted. So, yeah, I've only just realised we've not even spoken about Nico Gonzalez and what's going on with Nico Gonzalez. He seems to be like the forgotten man, the man that's overlooked, the man we spent £60 million to bring in from FC Porto. A tremendous option. He's not really been utilised. I don't really have an answer for you guys why the likes of Vita Hayes and Cody Husonoff and Nico G haven't been utilised by City. I'd have thought that had been utilised during the Club World Cup, and they haven't. So we'll see when we play against Palermo in pre-season as to whether we'll start to see more players getting utilised. And I wouldn't rule out City maybe having another game in pre-season, even if that's to be played behind closed doors, just to ensure that we're fully ready to go for the Premier League season. It's Wolves away, isn't it? First game of the season, a tricky little away game there, and it's important that City can try and get off to a good start. City getting off to a good start last season was so important for City securing Champions League football. We don't want to get off to a slow start, and City haven't really got an easy start to the season. Tottenham Hotspur, Manchester United, that's a bit of a joke actually. Arsenal though, there's difficult games. There's plenty for City to think about. So yeah. As I said, get your thoughts. What bits of business do you want to see City doing between now and September 1st when it comes to transfer deadline day? What business still needs to be sorted? How do we go about doing that business? Get that in the comments below, guys. Don't forget as well, if we're live right now, get them in the chat and seeing people in the chat. Much appreciated. throwing in there the Citizen saying Gundo, Bernardo, Kova leaving would still have enough depth in midfield, so we don't need to be looking at midfielders unless Nico G leaving as well. I don't think Nico G is going to be leaving, but there's depth there, there's quality there for City, so it isn't really something that we need to be looking at as of right now, which is probably why Morgan Gibbs White, the links to City, gone quiet and it's not going to be happening. YMC getting his thoughts in there as well. Wants Juma Bar back. He looks set for a loan, so Juma Bar's a very exciting player, by the way. Managed to catch some clips of him playing for RC Lens. He's a very exciting player. One definitely to keep a lookout for the future, but it's hard with City. It's hard to tell if City are signing players to sell them on for profit in the future, or if they genuinely want them around the first team squad. And, I think that's something Severi Naipan needs to seriously think about as well. Is he going to be a player that's around the first team, or is he just going to be a player that just gets strung along and Man City end up selling him for profit again? Again, I don't really have any updates on him. Who knows what's happening? When it comes to Severi Naipan, I've had my video on private ready to announce Severi Naipan as a City player. He got linked with a move to Dortmund. That's all gone quiet. I don't know what's going on, guys, to be honest. Yeah. LB's dream window right there. Either Chevalier or Costa being brought in. He wants Singo or Vanderson to be brought in and have a think about Lookman. Interesting shouts in there. Interesting shouts. I think goalkeeping situation, Costa would be my pick. I'd like Livramento to sort out City's right back situation. So that would be my pick. Are we short of an attacker? In particular on the right hand side? We're not even really spoken about it this summer, but what do we do if Savinho doesn't hit the ground running again and he continues to struggle to score an assist? And, the link-up play that we're so excited by on the left-hand side with Ait Nouri and Jeremy Doku, what do we do if that doesn't ultimately end up working? We need to, we need to have a good look. So, yeah. He said it's a dream. He said it's realistic. These are the bits of business that City need to do. They're the bits of business that need to be done. We could sit here and talk about transfers all day, to be honest. It's a very interesting topic of conversation when it comes to how do we sort out City's situations and what bits of business we need to be done. So as I said, do get that in the comments, guys. Don't forget to subscribe as well and keeping you guys up to date daily with my Man City transfer updates. Got today's update coming out in the next hour for you guys to enjoy as well. So do go and check that out. Don't forget as well to also check out my social media links. They're in the description along with my X, Instagram and TikTok. Email also in the description too if you want to hit me up for any sponsorships for any videos or any general business inquiries. And finally, don't forget as well to leave a thumbs up. 200 likes is the aim. And yeah, I'll see you all again next week for the next episode of the Transfer Show. As I said, do stay tuned as well for my daily City transfer update, including today, where we've got the very latest on Nico O'Reilly, we've got the latest on Jack Grealish, Ilkay Gundogan, Ederson, and much more. So I'll see you for that in the next hour or so. So I've been JSGC. Thank you everyone for watching. I hope everyone is safe and well. Peace. Ciao for now.